Welcome, dear listener. Settle into the comfort of where you are. Let your body rest a little more deeply. Feel the softness beneath you, the hush of the evening around you. Let the breath fall slowly in and out, as though the world itself is exhaling with you. Tonight, I'll share with you a quiet, dreamy tale, a love story without rush, without tension. A story meant to soothe you, to slow the thoughts that tumble through your mind, to guide you into a gentler rhythm, like waves moving calmly toward the shore. This is the story of a stargazer, and of a planet no telescope could ever find. A planet glowing softly, always on the edge of sight, and it is the story of two hearts, circling quietly, missing each other in their orbits until one night they did not. So let us begin. Slowly, softly, with a gentle longing, Aria often found herself awake long past the village's sleep. While windows darkened one by one, her own stayed lit by the faint glow of her small desk lamp. Her journals lay open in gentle scatter, pages filled with faint sketches of stars. She was not a scientist, not truly. She simply loved the sky, the way it bent like velvet overhead, the way it glittered with patience. Since childhood, she had felt that the night spoke to her more tenderly than the day ever did. But lately, there had been something new. In her dreams, a planet had begun to appear. Not the familiar silver of the moon, not the fiery scatter of Mars or the pale shimmer of Saturn. This planet was softer, stranger, bathed in a violet glow that seemed to hum, as if it carried a song of its own. She could never see it clearly. Always in her dream, it hovered just at the edge of her vision, waiting, turning slowly, radiant and quiet when she reached for it. She woke with her fingers curled against the bed sheet, her chest full of a sweetness she could not explain. Night after night, the dream returned, and each time she found herself whispering the same words into her darkened room. Where are you? Sometimes she would stand on her small balcony, a blanket wrapped loosely around her shoulders, and scan the heavens as though the violet glow might suddenly reveal itself among the constellations. But of course it never did. The stars remained. As they were, unbothered by her yearning, Aria began to sketch what she saw in her dreams. Circles shaded in violet ink, rings that shimmered like brushed silver. She filled the margins of her notebooks with faint drawings, hoping that if she repeated them enough, the planet might decide to step closer, to show itself not just in sleep, but in waking life. The village where she lived was quiet, nestled between low hills, where nights were dark and skies unbroken by city light. She often walked the narrow path to the meadow on clear evenings, carrying her notebook tucked against her side. Lying down on the soft grass, she would trace the constellations with her finger in the air, pretending she might one day connect them into the shape of her secret planet. Yet even with all her longing, the violet glow never appeared. The sky was vast but silent, and still she could not stop searching. It was not just a dream anymore, it was a feeling, the certainty that something gentle and unknown was out there, circling, waiting. Not lost, not gone, but missed just slightly, like a step taken too late, like a glance turned a moment too soon. And so Aria dreamed. She dreamed of the planet each night, and in the hush of morning, she carried its soft glow in her chest. Like a lantern lit only for her, days slipped by like calm water. Aria moved through them quietly, tending her small garden, reading by the window, and in the evenings, as always, turning her gaze upward. One afternoon, after finishing her work early, she lingered at her desk, tracing yet another sketch of the violet planet. The pages of her notebooks had become a quiet constellation of their own circles, rings, faint markings of light. This time she paused. The thought came softly, as though whispered by the evening breeze drifting through her curtains. Perhaps someone else has seen it too. The idea startled her gently. She had always believed the dream was hers alone to tender, too strange to be shared. But a part of her wondered if dreams sometimes echoed, like starlight bouncing from one window to the next. That night, as her lamp glowed faintly on her desk, she opened her old wooden laptop. Not something she used often. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, as she typed into a stargazers forum she had discovered months ago. A quiet corner of the internet where people posted photographs of the sky, notes about constellations, and sometimes soft musings about what they hoped was out there. She stared at the blinking cursor for a long time before writing. I've been dreaming of a planet I can't find with any telescope. It glows violet. It feels close, but just out of reach. I've started to call it Liora. Does anyone else ever dream of the sky this way? She hesitated. Then, with a breath, she pressed send. For several days, the message lingered quietly, almost invisible among the threads of galaxies and telescopic lenses. Aria tried not to think of it, though each evening when she sat under the stars, she wondered if her words had traveled to anyone who understood. And then, one morning, she found a reply. The words were simple, typed in calm lines that seemed to hold a quiet warmth. I've seen it too. I call it Amor. It hums softly, doesn't it? Aria read the message again and again. The letters blurred as if they were glowing themselves. A soft smile rose to her lips, not sharp or sudden, but slow, as though it had been waiting at the edge of her face for a very long time. Someone else had seen it. Someone else had dreamed. She leaned back in her chair, gazing out at the pale morning sky where the stars had already hidden themselves. And for the first time, she felt less alone in her searching. Later that evening, as twilight deepened and the first stars blinked awake, she walked out to the meadow with her notebook. She traced the name she had chosen, Liora, on the page. And next to it, softly, she wrote the other name too, Amor, two names for the same dream. Two voices, gazing at the same unseen light. The night hummed faintly, as though in agreement. The days that followed felt different to Aria. She still woke early, tended her garden, and filled her notebooks with quiet sketches. But now, each morning, she opened her laptop slowly, expectantly to see if another message had arrived. And often it had. The man's words were always calm, never hurried. He wrote of how he, too, had dreamed of the violet planet for as long as he could remember. He described the hum as a sound he could feel in his chest rather than hear with his ears, a low, steady note like breath resting against silence. He told her how he once tried to paint it, though the colors never quite matched. He called it Amor because to him it felt like the sky was holding something tender just out of reach, waiting to be found. Aria replied in kind, her words soft, almost whispered across the keyboard. She told him about naming it Liora because the word meant light in an old language she had studied once, and to her, the planet always seemed like a lantern that belonged to both night and dream. Little by little, their words began to weave together, not rushed, not filled with questions, but patient. Gentle exchanges, like two fireflies drifting near each other in the dark. Sometimes she would write, "Do you see it most often when the moon is full?" And he would answer, hours later, perhaps the next morning, "No, I see it most clearly. When the sky is bare, when the dark is darkest, it feels closest then." Other times he would write, "Do you ever wake with the feeling that the glow has followed you into the day?" And she would smile as she typed back, "Yes, every morning." One evening, sitting at her desk with her window open to the cool air, Aria noticed how quiet the world had become. The only sound was the faint rustle of leaves outside, the soft ticking of her lamp. She thought of him, not his face, not his voice, but the steady calm of his words. And in that moment, the distance between them seemed to narrow, just slightly, as if the unseen planet was drawing its orbit closer, pulling two small stars toward the same sky. She closed her notebook. After sketching the planet once more, but this time she added something new. Next to the violet circle, she drew two small dots, like companion moons, circling together. And as she leaned her head against the cool wooden edge of her desk, she thought of him, the man who also saw what she saw, the one who called it Amor. The night stretched on, soft and endless, and for the first time in a long while, she did not whisper, "Where are you?" Because in some quiet, tender way, she already knew. Nights passed softly, and the thread of their words grew stronger, though still delicate, like silk unspooling between two hands. One evening, Aria wrote, "Do you ever feel as though it's not just a dream? As though the planet belongs to us somehow?" The reply came the next morning. "I've wondered the same, that maybe it isn't in the sky at all. Maybe it's between us. Maybe it's what has been circling us all along." She read those lines again and again, her fingertips resting lightly against the keys, as though afraid to disturb them. "Between us." The phrase pulsed gently in her chest, as if the hum of the violet planet had suddenly moved closer that night. When she closed her eyes, the dream came again. The planet glowed softly, hovering on the edge of her vision as always. But this time, she was not alone. She could not see him clearly, not his features, not his shape, but beside her there was presence, a warmth that was not her own. A stillness that belonged to another soul, standing with her in the dream. And in that stillness, she felt the truth of it. They had both been circling the same unseen star for years. Their orbits had missed again and again, until now, when some gentle gravity had finally drawn them closer. The next day, she opened her notebook with a trembling calm. On a fresh page, she sketched the planet once more, but this time she drew two figures beneath it, faint silhouettes, their heads tilted to the same sky. When she sent him a photograph of the drawing, his reply was simple, "I dreamed it too." We were both there. Her breath caught in the quiet of her room, though it was not a startled breath, more like the hush that falls when the last note of a song lingers in the air. In the days that followed, their exchanges grew softer still. They spoke less of the planet's shape and more of what it felt like, the way it carried a peace that stretched beyond words, the way it made them both feel as though they had never truly been strangers. "Perhaps," he wrote one evening, "we have always been circling each other, and the planet is simply the place where our orbits touch." Aria pressed her hand against the page of her notebook, as though to steady the gentle ache of sweetness that filled her. She looked out at the dusk, where the first stars shimmered faintly, and in that deepening night she realized it was not the planet she had been searching for all this time. It was him. The summer deepened gently, and with it came nights that stretched long and warm. Aria began to feel a calm restlessness, not sharp, not impatient, but like the hush before rain, a knowing that something was ready to arrive. One evening she received his message, "I will be traveling through your valley in the coming weeks. Would you like to meet under the stars?" The words glowed softly on her screen. She sat for a while with them, letting her breath fall into a slow rhythm. Meeting him did not feel like a sudden choice, nor even a decision to be weighed. It felt like the next step in a path that had already been unfolding for years, as natural as the moon rising into its silver arc each night. She replied simply, "Yes." And so, on a night when the sky was clear and wide, she carried her blanket and notebook to the meadow. The grass was cool beneath her palms, and the air smelled faintly of earth warmed by the day. Above her, the constellations shimmered in there. Familiar places, but her gaze moved again and again to the spaces between where the unseen planet always seemed to hover. She heard footsteps before she saw him, not hurried, not loud, just steady, softened by the grass. When she lifted her eyes, she found him there, a figure outlined by starlight, pausing a few steps away, as though giving her the space to breathe him into reality. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They only looked at each other, the hush of night stretching tenderly around them. And in that silence, it felt as though the sky itself leaned closer, waiting. He lowered himself to the grass beside her, careful, unhurried. They sat side by side, not touching, not speaking, their gazes tilted upward. The stars wheeled slowly above them. A breeze drifted over the meadow, carrying the faint rustle of leaves, and though they did not name it aloud, they both felt it. The hum, the soft presence of the planet, nearer now than ever before. Aria glanced at him once, her eyes tracing the quiet curve of his profile against the starlight. His expression was calm, almost reverent, as if he too were aware that words might only disturb what the silence already held. So they let the silence stay. They let the night itself speak for them, the constellations arching high and the unseen. Planet glowing softly in the spaces between, and in that meadow, in that stillness, Aria realized she no longer needed proof or dreams or sketches. The orbit she had been waiting for had finally closed, not with fireworks, not with suddenness, but with a peace so gentle it felt infinite. The meadow grew still around them. Stars turned slowly overhead, unhurried, as if the entire sky had paused to listen. Neither Arian or the man beside her felt the need to speak. Instead, they sat quietly, letting the silence between them deepen into something whole. A silence not empty, but full of everything they had carried alone for so long, now gently set down side by side. Aria drew her blanket closer, the fabric brushing softly against her arm. He noticed and shifted, just slightly, so that their shoulders touched the lightest of contact, warm and steady, like the hush of a lantern's glow. She breathed out, slow and easy, and let her head rest gently against him. The night hummed, not loud, not startling, but the way a seashell holds the memory of the tide. A vibration felt more in the chest than the ear, a low note that seemed to rise from the earth itself. And together they both knew the unseen planet was near. It would never be mapped in books, never charted in telescopes. It was not meant for. That it belonged here in the quiet orbits of two hearts that had finally drawn close. They closed their eyes, leaning into the hush, and though the stars above them shimmered as they always had, Aria felt as though a new constellation had been written, one that only they would ever see. Time softened. The meadow, the sky, the world itself seemed to blur at the edges. And in that blur, the violet glow returned, not in dream, not in the telescope's glass, but inside them, shared. The planet drifted across their inner sky, pulsing slowly, like breath. It was not missed anymore. It had been found, and as the night deepened, their orbits aligned into stillness. Not a conclusion, not an ending, but a gentle beginning that needed no declaration. Only the hum, only the silence, only the quiet peace of two souls resting at last in the same sky. So if you close your eyes now, you may feel it to a soft violet glow, circling quietly, never lost, never gone, just waiting for you in dreams.